Hey, welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at a classic bouncing ball 2D animation. We're going to be doing that in Blender in the 2D animation workspace with the grease pencil. So what we're going to do here is we need to download our reference image. So we're going to go ahead and click here in order to get our reference image, and you want to download that. So make sure to download that on the local machine. I'm going to go ahead and put it just in downloads. And all right, there we go. I'm going to head over into Blender here and we're going to get set up. So this is the sort of the 3D workspace. We're going to come up here in the upper left, click File, go to New and choose 2D Animation. Don't save, and there we go. We are in our 2D animation workspace. And basically, in order to get a reference picture, there's a couple different ways to actually do this, but one way is we're going to kind of just go into object mode, and then we're going to choose our camera. Move that down a little bit, and you should see a little green icon under object, green camera icon under object data properties. Go ahead and click that. You'll find background images down here at the bottom. You can twirl that down, and you're going to click the checkbox for background image and click add image. It's going to give you some options down here. We just need to click open, go to that downloads, and find that ball reference image, and it will put that kind of like in the background, so we can draw over it, and then we can come back and kind of eliminate this. So the next thing you want to do in order to get your animation drawn is come back up here in your outliner, choose stroke, and go into draw. Now, if you are on camera and you try and skip this, let's see if we go here into camera mode. There we go. You can't go back into draw mode here in camera because camera doesn't have a draw mode. So you need to come up here. This stroke is actually a collection of all of the things you draw on the canvas, animated and otherwise. So we're going to go back here into draw. So now we're all set. We're back into our stroke. And we've got our background here. Let's go into, if you come down here, you'll see that the camera's been replaced by this object, this little squiggly line. That's the grease pencil. And you'll notice here that you've got lines layer and fills layer. So we're going to be drawing on the lines layer. The fills layer is behind it, and so we can come back and actually fill the ball after we're done. And so you want to make sure that you're on lines. And then we're on the pencil right now, the draw tool, and it looks like it's a pencil here. You can see up here in the upper left, it says pencil. I'm going to Control Z. That's kind of a gray, faint, skinny line. If you click the icon to the left of the pencil, you'll see some built-in brushes here, including the F ink pen. And so it's set at 60, which is probably a little too thick. So I'm going to set that at 40 under radius. And you could just come up here and manually change it. You can click and drag in order to get what you want. You can enter a number in here. You also down here can hit F and increase the radius or decrease the radius. You can also use Shift F in order to decrease the strength, which will give us kind of a gray, or keep it black. I'm going to keep it at 1 here. I'm going to also use my middle mouse key to scroll back a little bit so that we zoom out a little bit. And you can actually use your middle mouse key and zoom in if you want to get a better line drawn. Now we're down here in our grease pencil timeline at frame 1, and so we want at frame 1 we want this ball basically to be here. Okay, and then if you come down here and you just click one space later to frame 2 and you start drawing, it looks like they're both kind of living in this frame. But as soon as you let up, you'll see that this one is onion skinned and it's green now because it actually lives in frame 1. And the ball we just drew is in frame 2. That's where it's black. And then if we hit forward 1 arrow, we can draw this ball. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a bit. Reposition, and don't forget to come down here and click 4. So you can just click your right arrow and it goes to the next frame. And you can kind of zoom in on this by just putting your mouse cursor mouse cursor down here, and use your middle mouse button, and that will kind of zoom you out. So if you want to see these frames sort of separated here. So, all right, so let's continue drawing here. Right arrow gets me to 5. Here you can see that stretch. Remember, we watched that video. Hopefully you watched the video on squash and stretch. And so in order to add character to your animations, you can use squash and stretch. So the ball here is circular, and this reference image we're actually using to trace. Typically reference images you don't trace, but here if you're not comfortable drawing, you can do this. You could certainly draw this, hand draw this, and just use this as a reference image. One of the things that we're utilizing is that squash and stretch principle. So here the ball is roughly the size it's supposed to be. It starts to kind of just a tad elongate here, and you could really see it's elongating a bit more here, and here it's in its most elongated phase. And this drawing sort of is done by a professional who's got the timing down. A ball typically, when it starts to drop because of acceleration, is slower, but then as time goes on, it accelerates to go faster. Of course, it abruptly stops here, and this is where we get our squash. So this is a stretch here, and then this is a squash here, and then we get that stretch back, and then it starts to form back up into its normal shape. And then because of physics, the energy on its way up has been diminished by the collision with the ground, and so it slows down. And so this arc here is lower, and then as you can see, this arc is lower, and then the last arc is a bit lower. All right, so we went ahead and drew on 5, we're on 6, so we could come in and draw this elongated ball here, and then move to 7. And then if you don't like that, you can of course hit Control Z to undo. I had a little line hanging off there. There we go. It's a little bit better. All right, so right arrow. Right arrow. This one, it looks like, I'm actually going to undo that. I think I have, there's 2 balls. It's hard to tell which one. I think the one that's not squashed as much is the one I'm supposed to draw first, and then the one that's a little bit more stretched is the last one. All right, so if we ramp this back up here, back to 1, and notice it ends on, you can kind of see it falling here. And the timing is good because of the timing's been sort of done for us here. With a lot of experience, you figure out when things should be moving and how they should be moving according to physics. But this guy, 32 is where it ends. So I'm going to say 33. I'm going to go down here to end, put in 33. And that way when I hit the play button, I'll get this loop. And it's happening relatively fast. You certainly could spread those keyframes out. Let's say I wanted to slow the speed down by 1 frame. What I could do is I can down here highlight the summary. In the summary top layer, each of these count for all of these other ones. So this one is a summary of all of these. Whatever you do to the summary one, you do to the other keyframes. So each of these indicate keyframes where it's captured the data, and that's what creates the animation. So with all of these selected, I can hit S as in scale, and then I can just kind of pull this forward, and I can slow down the animation. Now, I still have it cut off at 33. Now that I've stretched it, I need to go to the end here to 45 and put 45 maybe in here so that I can see the whole animation. And I think that's probably going to work for me. I would like a little line maybe down here where it hits the ground. And so I think in order to do that, I'm going to rewind this guy. I'm going to go in here and create a new layer. So I'm going to call this background background, and I don't want to animate the background. I'm going to grab the background and I'm going to use this down arrow here in order to get it to the very back. And then I could come in here and click my line tool, and I basically can either choose to create a line where it looks like it's hitting the floor and it's like a little closer. That's like the edge of the floor. But if I hold down Shift, I can make a straight line. And I'm going to go past this one here. Oops. There we go. Once you start drawing and hit Shift, you should be good to make that. And then you hit Enter to lock that in, and that's in the background now. So if we come back to lines, we can hit our space bar to play. That looks good. Now we just need to fill it in. But let's watch it without the background image. We don't really need the background image as a reference anymore. So if you come back up into object mode and you click on camera, the actual camera, you can come down here and you can uncheck background images. And now when we hit play, all right, and it looks a little weird when it hits the ground because it's not filled in, but we're going to fix that. Let's go fill it. So we're going to go back into our grease stroke, or grease pencil stroke, and to draw mode, and we want to make sure we're in fills because we're going to be filling here and on this layer, and so it's behind the lines so we don't cover up any of the lines. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into materials. That's the little beach ball. And we're going to grab solid fill, and I don't want it to be gray, so I'm going to change the fill color here to maybe a nice green. Maybe make it a little darker. All right, there we go. So over here on the left, you've got a fill tool. I've got it on fill, and you can fill it in, and then you have to move to each of the next frames. And I'm using my arrow key just to move to each frame. And you need to see that black outline. So there's a black outline. I move right, there's not one there. I move again, there we go, there's the black outline, black outline, black outline. Now here, what do we want to do? Because we see that black outline and we probably want the ball to be solid here. So let me undo the paint, the fill here. And let's see what happens if we go back and we hide the background line and we fill that in. Then we're good. So we'll hide it for now, and we can use that method in order to fill. Oops. There we go. I didn't hit my arrow. Huh. It's like it's not filling. So I wonder if there's a leak. Usually it fills the whole screen in, but that might be an issue there. Leak size I have set at 3 pixels. Let me go to 4 pixels and see if that does the job. For some reason it is not filling here. Unable to fill unclosed areas. So it feels like, and I'm under fills here, so what I did here, let me go back to this next one and show you what happened. So I'm going to go back to this one. So there's a little leak here, and so if you hold down Alt, your Alt key, and kind of draw a line with your middle mouse button, then that forms a boundary, and then when you fill it, you don't run into that problem. So you can kind of cheat and use the Alt button and make a little invisible stroke, which then stops the fill from happening. So that's what I did there. So let's see if I've got any more of those. Those might have been the only ones that are open. So I can come back and turn my background on here, and I can hit spacebar. There we go. There are a couple frames where it looks like it's not colored. I don't know if you guys are catching that, but let's walk through here. That. I'm gonna turn off onion skinning here and here. There it is. Okay, so I need to use my Alt and hold down Alt and just kind of make sure that that's closed, and then I should be able to fill. There we go. There it is. I missed one. All right. There we go. Okay, so we're in great shape. So here I can save and render. I'm going to show you another method if you don't wish to draw the ball with that hand-drawn style. It's got the hand-drawn style, which I think gives it more character, but let's go into save here. And we would do bouncing ball 2D. All right, we'll save that under Documents, Blender Models. That's fine. I think we're good there. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, if we wanted to render this, what we would do is we would go to our output, which is the little printer icon over here. We would make sure that we're directing it to a folder we can get to. For me, that's Documents, and that's Blender Models, and maybe I set up one for 2D bouncing ball. And then I can double click inside the folder and now accept the folder. So that's the folder it's going to save it in right here. And then I want to change PNG to AVI JPEG, maybe bump this to 100%. Now I'm ready to render. Let me go up to the render menu. I always like to file save before I render so that it doesn't cause, if it dies or something, I didn't save, I don't lose my work. So render animation should turn that into a movie. So here you can see it's rendering. I may fast forward through this, although it's happening relatively quickly. We're at frame 14, 15, 16, and mine is roughly, I think, frame 44. So with the grease pencil 2D, it should go relatively quickly. There's no lighting or anything like that. There we go. All right, 45. So if I close this out, in order to test to see if I've got my video, we can open my file explorer here, and we can go into Documents and into Blender and into 2D bouncing ball. Notice it had 45 frames, and so it names it 0001-0045. You really should rename that. So I'm going to right click and rename. That's going to open it. Switch to Windows 11, so I've got some issues here. Let's see. Rename, that's the rename. Okay, good. Bouncing ball, except I misspelled it. All right. So that you would upload to your Google Drive and then change the share settings to share it with me, Roberts_Devin at ASDK12.net, and then you can put that into your portfolio. I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to open a new 2D animation. I'm going to go ahead and go to camera and see if I can get into object mode and establish that background image. Oops, there we go. Background image, add image, open. So what I want to show you is if you're not interested in the hand-drawn look and you want to use something that's a bit more precise, you actually can come back. I'm going to go back into stroke, go back into draw mode. But in draw mode, there's a tool here. Actually, I need to make sure I've got my ink pencil and I'm at about maybe radius 40. And what you can do is I zoomed out with my middle mouse button, but you can basically draw your circle this way, and when it's got those little handles, it means you can change the size. You have to enter to lock that in. So now I've made that circle. What you can do is actually come down here, hit forward one space, and then rather than redraw it, which you could do, but you could just go into edit mode and then just use G and then move the ball and then come down here and go to frame 3 and then come back up here, use G, move the ball. So that's a different technique here. We're moving an existing object in edit mode. You will eventually have to alter the shape of it. So here you can see it starts to elongate. So I might need to use S for scale, probably SZ to move it up a little bit, and then maybe R to rotate it. And then I can move to my next frame, and I can use again G to grab that, bring it down. Here I might need to hit SX to make it a little skinnier, SZ to make it a little more elongated. Come down, hit right arrow to go to my next frame. I can move this down here, possibly rotate it, and then probably SZ scale it in the Z. There we go. And then come down here, right arrow. So similar, very similar. Rotate it back up. Maybe scale it in the Z, scale it in the X a little bit. My rotation's a little off, so I'm probably going to rotate it back. And maybe even G to move it a little more. All right, so, and if we rewind this, you can kind of see same deal. So same techniques otherwise with the ground and the background by drawing that line, so it's not animated, but you can move and edit and use rotation and scale in order to complete the animation. So there you go. There's a couple of different ways that you could do the bouncing ball animation with the template. Like I said, you could just use this as a reference image and make a much more squashy ball if you wanted to, or a stiffer ball, but entirely up to you. Thanks for your time and energy in this tutorial, and I will see you in the next tutorial.